A lonely rancher's heart, buried with his wife beneath the cottonwood tree, awakens when a mysterious Apache woman with skin dark as mountain mahogany appears at the edge of his land, running from a world that has no place for her. Please subscribe the channel, press bell, like, comments, and share this video. Thanks for watching. The sun bled crimson over the Mogollon Rim when Thomas Callahan first saw her standing at the edge of his property line. She was tall, her skin dark as mountain mahogany, her hair a cascade of black silk that caught the desert wind like a wild mare's mane. She stood motionless, watching his cattle graze in the valley below, and something about her stillness made his heart stumble in his chest. Thomas had been ranching this land for 7 years, alone since his wife Sarah passed from the fever that swept through the territory. He had buried her beneath the old cottonwood tree and promised himself he would never love again. The land was enough. The cattle were enough. The silence was enough. But watching this woman standing there, proud and unafraid on the boundary between his world and the wilderness beyond, he felt something crack open inside him that he thought had turned to stone long ago. He approached on foot, leaving his horse ground-tied near the water trough. She did not run, did not flinch. Her eyes met his with a directness that few men possessed, let alone women in this harsh country. "This is Callahan land," he said, the words coming out rougher than he intended. "The land belongs to no man," she replied, her voice carrying the melodic cadence of someone who had learned English as a second tongue. "But I mean no harm to you or your animals. You're Apache. I am. My mother was Chiricahua. My father was a soldier from the Buffalo Regiment who loved her despite everything that stood between them." She paused, and something flickered in her dark eyes. "They are both gone now." Thomas removed his hat, suddenly conscious of his trail-worn appearance. "I'm sorry for your loss, and I am sorry for yours," she said, gesturing toward the distant cottonwood tree where a simple wooden cross marked Sarah's resting place. "A man does not live alone in country like this, unless grief has made him choose solitude." Her perception startled him. "What's your name?" "My mother named me Ishka. It means woman." A small smile touched her lips. "My father called me Clara. You may call me whichever suits you." "Clara," he said, testing the name. "What brings you to this territory?" "I'm running," she said simply. "The reservation holds nothing for someone like me. Too Apache for the white world, too marked by my father's blood for my mother's people." She looked away toward the distant mountains. "I thought perhaps in the wild places I might find somewhere to belong." Thomas thought about his empty cabin, his silent suppers, the way the night stretched on forever, with only the coyotes for company. He thought about the warmth that had drained from his life when Sarah drew her last breath. "There's a line shack about 2 miles north," he heard himself saying. "It's weathered but solid. If you need a place to rest, you're welcome to it." She studied him for a long moment, reading something in his face that he himself could not name. "You are not afraid of me? Of what the other ranchers might say?" "I stopped caring about the opinions of others when I buried my wife," Thomas said. "A man gets tired of fear, Clara. A man gets tired of being alone." She nodded slowly, something shifting in her expression. "Then I accept your kindness, Thomas Callahan, and I will repay it however I can." The weeks that followed changed everything. Clara proved herself capable in ways that astonished him. She could track a stray calf through rough country better than any cowhand he had ever employed. She knew which plants could heal a fever, which roots could ease the pain of aching joints. She worked alongside him from dawn until dusk, never complaining, never asking for more than she earned, and slowly, carefully, they began to talk. Thomas told her about Sarah, how they had met at a church social in Missouri, how she had laughed at his clumsy attempts at courtship, how she had agreed to follow him west despite her mother's tears and her father's warnings. He told her about the dreams they had shared, the children they had hoped for, the future that the fever had stolen. Clara told him about her mother, a woman of fierce beauty who had defied her entire band to love a black soldier. She spoke of her father, a man who had escaped bondage only to find himself fighting in another man's army, who had found in the Apache woman a kindred spirit, someone who understood what it meant to be considered less than human by those in power. They loved each other until the end, Clara said one evening as they sat on the cabin porch, watching the stars emerge from the darkening sky. My father died defending my mother from raiders. She followed him within the year. I think her heart simply refused to continue without him. Thomas felt the weight of understanding settle over him. That kind of love is rare. It is, Clara agreed, but it exists. I saw it with my own eyes. I felt it in the way they looked at each other, even after years together. She turned to face him, and the starlight caught the planes of her beautiful face. I used to wonder if I would ever find such love for myself. Now I wonder if someone like me is meant for such things at all. Why would you say that? Look at me, Thomas. Her voice carried no self-pity, only the weight of experience. I am too dark for the white world, too strange for the Apache. I am a woman alone in a land that devours the weak. What man would choose such a complicated path? Thomas reached out, his weathered hand covering hers. The touch sent electricity through both of them, a current of connection that neither could deny. Maybe, he said quietly. A man who has already lost everything is not afraid of complications. Maybe a man who has known the darkness of grief can recognize the light in another wounded soul. Clara's breath caught in her throat. You do not know what you are saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. He turned her hand over, tracing the calluses on her palm, the evidence of a life lived through hardship. I have watched you for weeks, Clara. I have seen your strength, your kindness, your courage. I have listened to your voice and found myself waiting all day just to hear it again. Tears gathered in her eyes, though she tried to blink them away. The people in town, they would never accept this. They would make your life miserable. They would... Let them, Thomas said fiercely. Let them whisper and point and judge. I have spent 7 years caring about nothing and no one. I have let my heart become a desert as empty as the land around us. But you, Clara, you are like the rain that comes after the long dry season. You are bringing me back to life. She was weeping openly now, tears streaming down her cheeks. I have been so lonely, Thomas, so terribly, desperately lonely. I thought I had made peace with solitude, but when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to hope. He rose from his chair and knelt before her, taking both her hands in his. Then hope with me, stay with me. Not in the line shack, not as hired help, but as my partner, my equal, my love. You would face the scorn of everyone you know. For you? Yes. 1,000 times yes. Clara pulled him toward her, and their lips met in a kiss that seemed to stop time itself. All the loneliness, all the grief, all the years of isolation, everything melted away in that single moment of connection. Two wounded souls, finding in each other the healing they had thought impossible. They married beneath the cottonwood tree where Sarah was buried, with only the preacher from the neighboring town willing to perform the ceremony. Thomas had explained it to Sarah in his heart, speaking to her memory as he often did in quiet moments. He believed she would have understood. She had always wanted him to find happiness, even if she could not be the one to provide it. The first years were difficult. Some ranchers refused to do business with Thomas. Some townspeople crossed the street rather than acknowledge Clara's presence. There were threats, ugly words, moments that tested the limits of their commitment. But there was also joy. Clara taught Thomas the Apache words for love, for home, for family. Thomas taught her to read the English classics, and they spent evenings by lamplight exploring worlds beyond their small valley. They built a life together, brick by brick, moment by moment. When their first child was born, a daughter with her mother's dark beauty and her father's blue eyes, Thomas wept with a happiness he had thought forever lost to him. They named her Hope, because that was what she represented, the promised that love could overcome any obstacle, any prejudice, any pain. More children followed. The ranch prospered. Slowly, grudgingly, even the most hostile neighbors began to accept what they could not change. Some even came to respect the Callahan family, recognizing in Thomas and Clara a devotion that put their own tepid marriages to shame. On the evening of their 20th anniversary, Thomas and Clara sat together on the porch of the house they had expanded over the years. Their children's laughter echoed from inside, where the grandchildren played with wooden horses Thomas had carved. "Do you remember," Clara asked softly, "the day you found me standing at the edge of your property? How could I forget? It was the day my life began again." She leaned her head against his shoulder, her hair now streaked with silver but still beautiful. "I was so afraid. I thought I was destined to wander forever, belonging nowhere, loved by no one. And now I know that home is not a place." She looked up at him, her eyes still holding the fire that had captivated him 2 decades ago. "Home is a person. Home is you." Thomas kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of sage and wildflowers that always clung to her. "I wasted so many years believing love was something that happened once and could never be found again. You taught me that the heart is capable of miracles." "We taught each other," Clara corrected him gently. "Two broken people who somehow fit together perfectly." The sun was setting over the Mogollon Rim, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson and purple. The same sky that had witnessed their first meeting now blessed the life they had built together. A life defined not by the color of their skin or the judgment of others, but by the depth of their commitment and the strength of their love. Thomas took Clara's hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "Whatever time we have left," he said, "I want to spend every moment of it with you." "You will," she promised, "until the very end and beyond." And in the golden light of the fading day, surrounded by the family their love had created, Thomas Callahan and Clara, Ra finally understood what had passed between them all those years ago at the edge of his property line. It was not just attraction, not just compassion, not just the desperate loneliness of 2 wounded souls. It was destiny.